It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. Your tax deadline headquarters. Now, with our continuing tax deadline coverage, let's go to the Red Eye Radio tax deadline news desk with Gary McNamara. Gary,
Well, from the news desk, our analysis is, and now this is a personal point of view. This may not be endorsed by the management or any of the sponsors of this show.
right?
I hate taxes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I hate taxes. And tax preparation, Eric, hates 2023, Eric, as well. He's screaming at him, why aren't you more organized? Actually, here's the thing. The process has become so much easier. Not as easy as when, I was broke and making almost nothing. But it's so much with the software and everything else. If you're doing your own tax prep, it is a lot easier now. It's just you really all you have to do is keep everything in line. Now, the good news is so far for earnings year 24, I am much better organized. My wife pretty much organizes everything and then has to go back and figure out my mess and organize it again. But it took me several hours. I love the counter on the tax software. Oh, we estimate this is going to take you an hour and 57 minutes. when it put that up there in the right-hand corner,
Yes.
TurboTax, thank you for that.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that confidence. I looked at it and started laughing. I thought, are you kidding me? 2 hours?
Here's a question that I have. How much does it, I'll have to ask my father because he does it.
Mm.
And by the way, Dad's doing great. I went back just for one day. It was a wonderful visit. Thank you, because I posted pictures of both on X and on Facebook of my father and I together.
And a cake, by the way.
And yes, you
could
saw the
be
cake.
one of the only pictures with you and cake in it.
Yes.
For those longtime listeners of the show, you know how big of a deal that is.
Well,
because we never get cake.
Well, the great thing was, and you'll appreciate this, they already had cake like 2 weeks ago, and they celebrated my sister's birthday, my brother's birthday, and my father's birthday.
Yeah, all right.
But because I was coming in, and my father's birthday was Thursday, last Thursday. So and they'd celebrate like 2 weeks before.
Right.
And they specifically got a cake because I was in town. So the cake was for my father, but it was also because I was in town.
All right. It was a good-looking cake.
It was a good-looking cake, but it destroys I will call it, anybody who's a type 2 diabetic understands this when you're carb watching. It was a cheat day.
Well,
yes.
But you know what? And I heard a doctor tell me it should be that way for everybody. But now we've gotten into the habit of, people keep, when we were kids, that didn't happen. It was like it was birthdays and holidays, and that was pretty much it. You didn't have cookies laying around all the time and everything else. And a doctor told me, yeah, you should only, don't have a cheat day once a week. You should have your cake on, special occasions. And that's what it should be about.
Oh, yeah, and my doctor says the same thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't feel guilty about having a cheat day because
No.
because of all the days I don't cheat that are like, all right, can I please pass the gruel over here?
Yeah.
Is it low-carb gruel?
Right.
But just thanks, all the nice comments that everybody sent about my dad. And I'll just tell you this. My dad is doing great, and the best part is because he got a pacemaker in earlier this year, or excuse me, late last year, and his pulse was down to just 40 beats a minute. Now it's 80.
Yeah, wow.
Well, you just wonder if somebody, when they get into their 90s, when they get into their 80s, you wonder at times. I mean, we talk about Biden all the time. What's your cognitive abilities and what is it? Is it just old age? Is it dementia? Whatever. And I'll tell you this, I had conversations with my father last week where he was, and even when I was just in town, where it was, everything was precise.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, okay. I guess when you're pumping twice the amount of blood through a body that wasn't getting that blood pumped through, it goes to the brain cells.
Yeah.
And he just was, not that he wasn't on before.
Right.
But I was the way he is for 98 years old. And how he's got the walker and everything else, but he's moving even better there. So I think it's a godsend that he got the pacemaker last year. But he's doing great, and he wanted to thank everybody, all of our listeners who have commented on his birthday. He said, "Thank you so much." It really, my dad is a very humble man, and he never sought the spotlight. His son did, but he does appreciate when his son's listeners compliment him.
Yeah, there you go. Love it.
It's a good day. But what an interesting weekend we had. Not a surprise. Everybody knew that it was coming, that Iran was going to hit Israel, and it happened over the weekend.
Yeah, it's not often you see pretty much international stories that kind of plastered the news late Thursday and early Friday that said, yeah, okay, it's likely, it's coming. It's almost like it was almost like a game. It was almost like, because it was Masters weekend, it was almost like it was an event that had been scheduled. Oh, well, yeah, Iran's going to be attacking Israel and probably using drones, and this is how it will go down. I don't know that I saw Jordan helping to defend Israel, although they say we were just defending our own airspace. But I think that is a big deal in this equation. Jordan is, I'll say, I saw the media, is now an ally of the U.S. I'd say leans more so toward the ally side. Let's be careful. The word ally to me anymore is one of those words. We know certain allies, but let's just be careful, especially in the Middle East, of who we call an ally and who we don't. Israel in the Middle East, most definitely, in my opinion, and the radicals won't agree with me on that, but they are, of course. But it was. I think that kind of sends the message, and Jordanian leadership can say what they want, if that's their position. No, we're just defending our own airspace and our own citizens, and but you're doing it. You're standing between Israel and Iran, and the world gets the message on that, and there's no turning back on that. There is no, you can't play neutral on that. And
it's what your actual behavior is, and how that behavior can be interpreted. And I guess we can extrapolate that out to this administration also, if we're going to do that.
Yeah.
It's funny that I was watching TV with my dad on Saturday, and I knew the attack had happened, but you're just getting so busy with stuff and everything else, and so turned on the TV, and NBC wasn't covering it, and CBS wasn't, and then boom, you went to ABC, and they're covering it. And I'm like, wow, and it seemed to be extended coverage; it just wasn't a break. And I said, are they doing this and covering it? It was the I think between the first and second period of the hockey game. So there was like a 15-minute segment where they were doing it, and I went, "Oh, okay," because I didn't like the bent that they were throwing at it to begin with. But then again, when I realized they were doing it in between a hockey game, I realized nobody was watching it anyway. So
it
wasn't a big deal.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even know who was playing, so don't get on my case if it was the team that you
You
liked.
weren't even watching it,
But no. Well, look, America doesn't. I love hockey, but I have to admit, America doesn't unless you're playing the Soviets, and that ain't happening again.
I love watching hockey Certainly, going to a game, I love watching it, but I can watch hockey on TV and not get bored with it. There are other sports that football's not. Football's its own thing. I think in America, but I love watching hockey. But it's not, as you make the point. It's not a huge audience.
No, it's not. And probably, they it was ABC running it, or was it NBC? I can't remember. Whatever network was carrying it. They can't get over 1 million or 2 viewers.
Yeah.
Even if you look, and by the way, now that they're in the playoffs and Buffalo isn't, look at it's amazing when and I grew up in Buffalo, so people don't know that, but I did. If you didn't know that, most people do, but if you didn't, I grew up in Buffalo, so yeah, it's a hockey town. And if you look at like the playoffs and like you get to the Stanley Cup, and you look and it's like, okay, Buffalo is even beaten in watching it some of the host cities in the past. So even though they haven't been in the playoffs, they have the longest record ever of not being in the playoffs, yet they still will watch playoff hockey.
Wow.
Even to a greater extent than some of the home teams' audience that is in the finals. It's just
like me in sports
amazing.
cars. You'll never have it, but you'll look anyway.
yeah. So, but so I was just making I was actually making a comment hitting the mainstream media is what it was about, that nobody was watching it, and I just threw hockey in to make my stupid point. But what really got me, and we'll have the audio, John Kirby insisting that this was Trump's fault because Trump got out of the Iran deal.
Yeah.
And the Iran deal, enabling Iran by giving them billions of dollars.
Right.
And letting them develop, going in with the nuclear deal that Congress did not authorize.
Right.
And claiming that an Iran deal that Trump did not want is somehow to blame, that Trump is to blame for this, isn't going to cut it. Everything they've tried to blame Trump for, inflation, that didn't work. The border, that didn't work. Now they're going to do it for, Iran. It's not going to work.
No, it's not going to work.
Because the appeasement is so obvious to the American people of this administration.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. If you're saying that it's Trump's fault because he delayed the actions of Iran for several years, and their proxies, the fact of the matter is that everything that's on the table, and this is the thing, is that the Wall Street Journal kind of pointing out in one of their stories, Biden was trying to basically, and I'm paraphrasing from their take on this, Biden trying to walk the fence on the whole Middle East. You don't want to become a wartime president in the summer of your reelection bid, but it's looking more and more to be the case.
Well, the White House was really ticked off this happened because Biden had to come back from his weekend.
When I saw that, he left the beach, I thought, my gosh, he didn't leave the beach for the botched exit of Afghanistan.
I know.
And he came back to the White House for this. Tells you everything.
Well, he eventually came back, but he wasn't happy.
Well, it was the Monday when he came back.
It took him long.
So he didn't come back from the vacation.
Right.
Yeah, and then he turned around and went back on vacation.
Well, the fact that because they were talking about that he would make a comment on it, and he made no comment over the weekend. He wouldn't appear publicly on it.
And he came back Saturday, didn't he?
Yeah, it's a really amazing.
My gosh, he broke up his weekend. He didn't do that in the botched exit of Afghanistan. This is so damaging in so many ways. Because now the radicals, look, you're not going to appease the radicals anyway. We're talking about the protesters here stateside. You're not going to appease any of those people.
You saw in Chicago, they were cheering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, the one thing I did see, there seems to now be in the popular culture where it's viral in social media that, and because you saw the memes all over the place, that we're funding both sides of this war.
Yeah. Well,
that the United States is enabling Iran to get the money, and then we're defending, then we're giving, defense systems and money to Israel to fight Iran and Iran's proxies that this administration has ensured is well funded. And, oh, by the way, I remember last week we played that Deputy Assistant Secretary? I think he's doing a Mayorkas. Because remember, he was saying, no, money isn't fungible, and every single dollar that Iran gets goes to their violent and terrorist activities.
Right.
Well, then John Kennedy had him. The Senate had him. And he was stating, oh, no. None of this money we've given them has got to Iran at all. It's only going to the charities. He said, well, how do you know that? Is the State Department or is the Treasury Department involved in where the money goes? He goes, well, who is? He goes, no, it's the Qatar banks. Well, who regulates the Qatar banks? Well, the people that run the banks. Well, then you have no idea. You're lying to me.
Right.
So this is like, I got to play the audio from Mayorkas last week. It was Jim Jordan. And that's the problem. None of these people will answer a question. They'll sit there and throw stuff at you that makes you think they're going in one direction, and they're going in a completely different direction. And that deputy secretary from the Treasury Department was doing the same thing last week. I got it wrong when I played that audio cut. I don't think that's what he meant, even though it seemed like that's what he was saying, because that's what this administration does. They never answer a damn question.
Right. And they are all over the place.
Yeah, it just, what a weekend it was. Okay, we got lots to talk about today. 866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Cold weather takes a toll on trucks. As warmer weather rolls in, it's time to assess the impact winter has had on your vehicle before you find yourself stranded roadside this spring. Begin your spring maintenance routine by inspecting your brake system and listen closely for any air leaks. During winter, water and moisture that builds up in your air brake system almost always freezes and turns to ice, which can damage your air valves, air dryers, and other essential components. Check and drain your air tanks to help keep water, contaminants, and corrosion at bay. Also, check your slack adjusters for proper stroke and lubrication. And check your brake lining or pads to ensure proper thickness.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up, we'll hear from the administration on Iran's attack on Israel. Did you see Tim Kaine, Democrat Tim Kaine, comparing parents who raise hell at school board meetings to January 6 rioters?
Yeah.
They still want to push that. It was justified for the FBI to be taking license plate numbers of parents' cars in school parking lots who were protesting the racist critical race theory and the insane liberal transgender activist movement in schools.
How dare you, parents? How dare you? Listen, we feed your kids breakfast, lunch, afternoon snack, dinner, read them bedtime stories. We do everything, and all of a sudden you want to get back to parenting and being concerned. You're terrorists. You're a threat.
We'll tell you about major media organizations urging Biden and Trump to debate.
Hey, I'm urging Biden and Trump to debate. Man, I want to see that.
The Trump trials. Here's a headline: what economists miss about inflation. That and a whole bunch more coming up.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. You can listen when and where you want if you can't listen live overnight. There it is. America's anti-war activists cheer for Iran.
Yeah.
That was in Chicago.
Yeah.
A left-wing conference in Chicago. Activists believe Iran is part of the arc of resistance because the enemies are Israel and the USA. About 300 anti-war activists crowded into a basement of a Teamsters Union headquarters on Saturday to hear organizers from all over the country describe their plans to disrupt the Democratic National Convention this August. We've been saying this since they announced it was going to be Chicago.
Yeah.
You especially. I don't know why, but when that came out, me sitting over here on this side and you over there just going, are they out of their freaking minds? What are they doing?
Well, I mean,
it's gonna
seriously,
be a nightmare.
it's because this is a known, it's a given. You're going to have radicals regardless of where you go, but in these major radical cities like Chicago, you're going to have even more radicals in that situation. Then you get into the issues, and it's like, how radical will they be inside? Forget about the protesters down the street, and now the protesters will be on the floor. The radicals will be on stage during prime time. Where do you go in your primetime speech in Chicago? I have no idea. But I can't wait.
As they said, so these activists gathered to describe their plans to disrupt the Democratic National Convention this August. Joe Biden's backing of Israel since Hamas's October 7th attack has turned these left-wing radicals against their own party. Well, his part-time backing of Israel.
Yeah. Right.
Because at the same time he backs Israel, he also backs Hamas.
Right.
He's trying to, and by the way, this is what's going to kill this administration because they're still trying to do it. They're trying to, and that's why I'll have to find there were a couple of op-ed pieces out there saying Biden says don't, so they did.
Yeah.
That Biden is viewed as so weak, and so he's viewed as so weak. And as I said, I really saw over the weekend more of those memes that are out there. Mm-hmm. I'll have to find one and get the exact the verbiage of it. But it was like, we're financing both sides of this.
Yep.
The United States is financing both sides of this because we had the ability to stop the financing of Iran. And we were doing it under Trump, and Biden won't do it.
Right.
And we know how Biden is attacking Israel, saying, for example, it was brought up when he said indiscriminate bombing. That was a lie from the president.
Right.
In fact, the New York Post did a op-ed piece about Biden can lie about everything, and the thing is the media won't call him on it at all. Remember when they counted the number of lies of Trump? And then they stopped it with Biden. They just said, okay, we're not going to fact-check him anymore.
Right.
So the fact-checking isn't
bottomless
there.
Pinocchios.
And after he got the bottomless Pinocchios from the Washington Post, it was like, well, it's bottomless. It's everything. Why?
Yeah. We're not going to revisit this.
And so that's one of the biggest problems this administration has right now. As this thing heats up, they're trying to support both sides.
Right.
And they can't do it.
Right.
It's insane. But,
well, and you're stateside, you're not going to appease the radicals ever.
Here it is. Omar Flores, a Milwaukee-based activist, said it's really inspiring to see that people are just as enthusiastic and maybe even more enthusiastic to march on the DNC as they are to march on the RNC. We can thank Genocide Joe and our movement for that. Well, but then a man stumbles to the podium, wiping sweat from his forehead. He grabs a microphone to announce that the Islamic regime of Iran has launched missiles and drones heading straight towards Israel. They believe that they will be in Palestine. I don't call it Israeli airspace between 2 and 4 a.m., which means about 2 to 4 hours from now, he said. In addition, there are reports of drones having been fired on Israel from Yemen and Iraq. The crowd, all wearing black N95 masks, erupts in applause. Someone in the back lowers their mask to send a celebratory whistle soaring throughout the room.
Wow.
God, this is just... By the way, this is the Free Press wrote this. This is Olivia Reingold from the Free Press wrote this. I just love it. The crowd all wearing black N95s.
Wow.
The man at the podium who heads the U.S. Palestinian Community Network, a purported community group which on information and belief is an affiliate of the Popular Front of the Liberation of Palestine, a designated terror organization based in Gaza, according to a lawsuit over the alleged relations between U.S. advocacy groups and Hamas. This is when this country in the world needs us because the United States is going to, quote, unquote, defend the criminal Israeli state, said the head of the U.S. Palestinian community, whose home was raided by the FBI in 2010 as part of an investigation concerning material support for terrorism. We have to assume that the United States is going to try to retaliate against Iran. But again, after they just, they're cheering it and everything else. And but there's a headline, American anti-war activists cheer for Iran's war. Let's go to see what the White House has to say. This is
all right.
John Kirby over the weekend on Fox News. And it's just getting bizarre. It's like we got to blame, just like the border. It's Trump's fault. Inflation is Trump's fault. And now what's going on here is Trump's fault.
Yeah, we're dealing with children here.
Here we go.
The conversations about unfreezing assets, about waivers on sanctions.
Yeah.
Could this administration have been tougher on Iran? Did it sense an opening?
It's hard to look at what President Biden has done with respect to Iran and say that he hasn't been tough on Iran, that we haven't put pressure on them, that we haven't additional 500 sanctions, additional resources in the region. And let's take a look at that ballistic missile. Okay, so they launched more than 100 ballistic missiles. And how many got through? And the reason it didn't get through is because President Biden made sure that we pre-positioned forces in the region to help Israel shoot them down.
I want to stop it there because that's where he's admitting. Because she's sitting him saying they put this money to ballistic missiles. And he's saying, yeah, but the ballistic missiles couldn't get through because we have supported and helped create and fund the Iron Dome.
Yeah.
Do you realize what he's saying? He's saying we're funding both ends of the war,
right.
And that's a good thing,
right.
And that's a good policy for the United States.
Right.
It's nuts. Because that's the whole point where he said, let's look at these ballistic missiles. They didn't get through. So you're admitting that the funding of Iran, that the money that they have, that's what he's communicating to me when I heard that. Mm-hmm. Well, hey, but even if we are funding the missiles, it's no big deal because we're also funding the other side. So as long as we're funding both sides,
nobody wins.
You know what I thought, though? I thought of the remember the Star Trek episode where they went to the planet and there was a war and they were talking to one side of the war. And what they were doing is they were just putting people into chambers and killing them.
Yeah.
And that's how they had a better war. They were just killing people in chambers and then counting it back and forth. But nobody was really accomplishing anything of getting land or anything. They was like, and I was thinking when, none of them got through, I went, okay, are we to the point where, artificial intelligence will actually fight wars, but nobody will die, but we'll keep fighting them?
Well, no. This is exactly what the radicals were talking about when they were screaming about Israel, and they said, look, they're using unequal force.
Yeah.
They need to use the same amount of force that Hamas uses.
So it's going to come out that the Iron Dome in the U.S. Helping and the taxpayers doing that is wrong.
Yeah.
Because Israel needs to have more people die.
Right.
In order to make it, we need DEI wars.
Yes. It's unfair. They send over 130 drones. You can only have 130 different opportunities to take it down, or maybe we'll cut that in half since you're Israel.
We need DEI in wars.
Yeah.
Death, equity, and inclusiveness.
That's right. We're just trying to stand with both sides.
But when he said that, I was just like, what you're saying is, your fallback position is, okay, well, even if some of this money got to Iran, they produce these ballistic missiles, and so this money got there. But don't worry, we're fighting both parts of this war. Yeah. We're helping in ensuring that Iran has the funding, but also we're funding Israel to defend themselves against them. But Israel, you better not counterattack now. You better not counterattack. I mean, this is the most bizarre. But let's finish it here when he gets to blame Trump. All right, here we go.
So this vaunted ballistic missile program of theirs didn't turn out to be so vaunted
why
last
not
night.
support something that would have stopped that program or at least contained it in some way so it's not launching in Israel and we aren't having to get it involved defensively?
Again, Shannon, just look at the sanctions that we put in place against Iran. Look at the resources we put in this into the region. It's hard to take a look at what President Biden has done and say that we've somehow gone soft on Iran. It was the previous administration that decided to get us out of the Iran deal, and now Iran is so much dramatically closer to a potential nuclear weapon capability than they were before Mr. Trump was elected.
So it's Trump's fault.
Yeah.
And she hits him on the right part. Did you see her in the talking point? And the talking point is the exact same phrase. It's tough. It's tough to say that this president.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you say this? But that's where the gaslighting comes in. What are you, an idiot?
Right.
It's tough to say it. This president has been so tough on Iran, and I was looking at where was it? CBS poll, October 2023, approval for Biden's handling of Israeli Hamas, 44%. Okay, I need to get back to where it was before here. I lost. It was. Hang on, 1 second here. We'll get it in a second. Here it is. October of 2023, 44% approval of Biden's handling of the Israeli-Hamas conflict, 39% in December, 39% in January, 38% in February, 33% now. It keeps going down and down and down.
Well,
and because people know we're playing both sides here. And
Yeah.
that everything this administration does, you can't say it's just wrong. It's insane.
well, look at the border. He opens the border and then says, "My hands are tied. I can't close it."
Yeah.
This is like dealing with a teenager like a child. Kirby trying to make the point that getting out of the Iran deal, which of course depleted their funding. Well, see, look at what's this is a result now of that action. Then don't pay any attention to the last few years where we helped Iran get funding to the tune of tens of billions of dollars, well over $100 billion so far. Don't pay any attention to that part of it.
I got to find the Kennedy thing where he interviewed the deputy treasury secretary last week, because that's really interesting. Because the fallback position is now that, yes, Iran will take every dollar they get and put it into violence and terrorism. None of it will go to the people. But we have set up a system that we have no control of in the United States. It's the Qatar bank executives can do whatever they want with that money, but we trust they're doing the right thing.
Right. And remember, at first they were saying, no, we have oversight over everything. And now they're saying, well, no, we're just hoping that Qatar does the right thing.
Right. Still, Kennedy just said right to his face, "You're lying." He didn't come back and say, "I'm not lying. How dare you do that? You take that back."
Right.
Say that. It's just.
Well, because this is the game that they have to play. For the longest time, on a number of things, you could get away with this kind of garbage. But everything right now is so obvious because it's reality at the door. This isn't, remember with the Iran deal. The Iran deal was what might happen as a result of the Iran deal. Well, now we've got Israel and Iran's proxies going at it, and everybody sees it. It's reality. It isn't the what if anymore. And this is the case for pretty much every issue at the feet of this current president.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. The Trump trial starts today. We'll go over it so people can understand it. And just understand how bogus it is, and we'll do it in plain language. We won't try to complicate it with a lot of Ivy League legalese. There was a story over the weekend. Is an elite college overrated? Well, of course it is.
Yeah.
What you get out of an elite college, is it overrated for what you pay? Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. The answer is yes, and you don't need to elaborate on that. It's just, yeah, it is.
Top of the hour news is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome. Thanks for being here. How's everybody? Everybody have a good weekend?
Happy Monday. Thank you.
I did watch a lot of the Masters, and it was. I watch more of the Masters than probably anything else.
All right.
I really don't. I watch a little bit of the golf lately, and it was Scotty Scheffler. It's getting interesting because he's now won. He won the Masters, of course. He was the favorite to win, and he's won 3 out of the last 4 tournaments. And the tournament he lost 2 weeks ago, he lost by 1 stroke. So I mean, right now he's doing Tiger-like things right now. This last month, he is by far the best golfer on the planet.
Wow!
And I was thinking yesterday that a lot of people say, "Well, I'd love to play Augusta. I'd love to go. I don't know if I'd love to play. Those greens are too hard." It's like you've got to be so precise in how you hit the ball. But it was really cool. It was really cool. And it was Vern Lundquist's last time covering the Masters.
Oh wow!
He's the one that back in that would have been on the 17th hole for Jack Nicklaus when Jack Nicklaus won at 46, where he went, "Yes, sir."
Yeah.
And then remember the Tiger chip on 16 that came out and just kept rolling towards the hole and then stopped dead, and the camera was on it for like 3 or 4 seconds.
Yeah.
And then it fell in the hole.
Yeah.
He did that one too. I mean, I can't remember what the exact quote, but he was there for that one. I guess Tiger Woods actually went and said goodbye to him because he was, and it was sad. It was sad because you could hear. I think he started, and if anybody saw it, was he breaking up? They were going to commercial, and he was done with the 16 because Scotty Scheffler had his group had finished and was going to 17, and they were talking to Vern Lundquist, Jim Nansen, just saying thank you and everything else. And he was like, "Well, it's been an honor, and and I'm just paraphrasing here, and then it just stopped. It sounded like he was breaking up, and he never finished the sentence as they went to commercial.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
But all in all, it was fun to watch it over the weekend. I actually watched a lot of it with my brother and my dad on Saturday. Yeah, it was a quick trip. I flew in Friday night, was back Sunday morning, was back in town by 8:30 in the morning. So I feel jet lagged, and people will say, "But it's only an hour." No, it's not that. It's because of the sleep shift that I had over the weekend.
Yeah, the flight itself, and it's the prep and the back and forth and everything else. And we did some traveling by car, and it was and some work on a family member's property, and it was like, all right, feeling that a little bit. I did notice, by the way, on the Masters, I noticed Amazon Prime had certain things, certain groups that they showed. It was just for short periods of time. It's like, okay, this on round 4, hole 16 on this, and I thought, well, that's interesting. So is that kind of a side deal? I don't know how that works because it's not the full broadcast. And there were 3 that I noticed
I'll have to check that out.
that were Sunday morning. And I'm assuming, and they went live, but I'm assuming that you could go back and still watch it on Amazon Prime, although I didn't at that time. I had seen it. It was midday Sunday, and the first one for that morning that they were going to show, that first segment, had ended, but I didn't check to see if it was still viewable.
Was it like a documentary, or was it actually coverage?
No, it was coverage.
Okay, well, then Augusta National has to approve that.
Yeah, of course.
And CBS would too.
Yeah, of course. But that's the new. Is that the new side deal that streamers are going to have? All right, we'll let you in for a little bit of it. We'll let you in here and there. That's interesting.
Well, ESPN Plus had extra coverage, but the Masters has an app, and I get it a couple of days before.
Right.
And they have specific groups that are out there. They cover just certain holes.
Right.
Like they'll say, okay,
what Amazon
we're covering
was doing.
4 or 5 and 6. Okay, they must have given the permission, but the Masters app is really almost all include. I think on the Masters app you'll find what you will find anywhere.
Well, this could be a deal, especially with Amazon, because Amazon will push other subscriptions, right? Like, hey, you could watch these shows, but it requires you to get a subscription to whatever, Paramount Plus. So maybe it was, okay, you can watch these, but you have to get the app. You have to get the Masters app or something, or maybe they promote the Masters app in return for that. So I don't know, but I didn't look. But I thought that's probably the future anyway. You're going to get as many players in terms of TV money and sports in general. It's kind of breaking up all over the place. So you're trying to get as much of that money as you can. So.
All right, so I saw this, I burst out laughing because I went, oh, this is an editorial for the stupid. And it was actually an op-ed piece, and it was done by, it was done by Robert Posen, who is the senior lecturer at MIT Sloan School of Management and former chairman of MFS Investment Management, and also S.P. Kathari, who is a professor of accounting and finance at MIT Sloan. So you sit there and think and go, okay, this is going to be quite technical, right? I mean, this is the economists, get into the economic speak and all that stuff. And it's like, after about a minute, they lose you. After about 10 seconds, they lose you. And it's not the case. But they're like, what economists miss about inflation? By the way, they don't miss it. They ignore it. Many economists and political commentators wonder why U.S. consumers continue to feel they are suffering from inflation, although the annual rate of inflation dropped sharply during 2023 and is still well below its peak in the summer of 2022. The answer is that consumers have a broader time horizon. Listen how they explain this. They are looking at the rate of price increases over the past 3 years. From January of 2021 to January of 2024, the Consumer Price Index for all items rose by 17.96%. A concrete example, you paid $10 for a tuna sandwich at the start of 2021. By the start of 2024, that same tuna sandwich will cost you $11.80. That certainly feels like a severe inflation. It wouldn't be much comfort if an economist told you should feel good because the price of the tuna sandwich only rose by 3.11% in the last year. Moreover, in 2021, no one was asking for a tip. Since the pandemic, it's become common for payment screens at takeout places to prompt customers for a gratuity as much as 25%. You can say no, but at the risk of a scowl from the cashier. Economists might argue that consumers should be satisfied that their wages rose over those 3 years, but the rise in total wages have not kept up with inflation. Further, at the beginning of the pandemic, many consumers of moderate or low income received some type of government grant, such as refundable tax credits for children or unemployment checks that exceeded their prior take-home pay. These grants declined in 2022 and ran out in 2023. In short, prices are up, wages aren't keeping pace, and the tuna sandwich that used to cost $10 now costs $13, including a small tip. No wonder consumers feel as if they're battling price inflation. No, they're not ignoring it. You know, or they're not missing anything.
No, they're deliberately going around it.
It's propaganda. And the other thing that they miss here, though, is, too, you have to look, when you talk about inflation, you've got to talk about, as was brought up last week, that really cooled down the talk of the wonderful, you know, when it looked at the inflation numbers, it said, no, the real problem here is the super core inflation. And super core inflation are the things that you have to buy.
Right.
And the things that you have to buy and the average grocery list are through the roof.
And so far this year, it's at an annualized rate of 8%.
Right. And when you look at the average grocery list of the average person, pre-pandemic to now, up over 37%, almost 40%. It's increased.
Yep.
On the things that people actually buy. Let's not be stupid. That's why I said, you know, okay, is this op-ed piece for stupid? Is stupid out there? We're stupid. Right, because this isn't, the economists aren't missing it, they're ignoring it.
Well, and there's, you know, there's the thing, too, is that the economists have never connected with the consumer, generally speaking. The consumer is not missing it at all. They're not missing, and they can't ignore it. They're living it every single day. So these economists that go out of their way and avoid it, well, fine. You're proving the old adage that the economists know nothing. You can sit and try and break something down, but the fact of the matter is that the American people pay for this. Every report that comes out is looking backward, and the American people look at that and go, yeah, we already know. We already know about March. We already know about April. So, you know, this entire breakdown thing is really stupid, because what they don't do is they don't break down the things, you know, quite frankly, the way we do. And we say, okay, we can't tell you what the future is going to be. We can tell you what's happening right now and what that typically means for the future. You look at wholesale inflation last week. And it's like, well, sorry, year over year, it looks like inflation, generally speaking, inflation on the big picture is going to be around this year, and it's going to be consistent with the first quarter of this year. Now, I hope that's not the case, but everything tells us that it is going to be the case.
By the way, these economists, these professors, they're right. It's just the fact when they say what the economists miss.
Right.
Everything they said is correct.
Mm-hmm.
But it was almost as if it was written, at least in my opinion, it was like, okay, let's write one for stupid out there, but let's let the economists off the hook, because the economists aren't missing. Why are the economists missing this? They're not missing it.
No.
They know it's there.
Right.
But they're not economists.
Right.
They're political activists pushing an agenda, you know, like Paul Krugman last week.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm fine. All my friends are fine. Well, you're worth millions of dollars.
Yeah. You're an elitist. We know.
Yeah. Why aren't people happy? Why aren't people happy with the fact that they're working full-time and they have a part-time job too?
Right.
Well, they should be happy that they're working. Yeah, but they can't keep up. I'm doing fine.
I'm okay.
I'm okay. My friends are okay. Why aren't you okay?
Well,
what's wrong with you?
That's that's it. They choose to wear blinders. They don't care about looking at what people are going through. You don't even have to care about the people that are going through it, which they don't. But for families every single day, you can look at the numbers and say, all right, this is what they're dealing with. That super core inflation is important. What is happening right now with the cost of pretty much everything? Yesterday, putting an order in for groceries, and it was like, my gosh. Everything is insane. You know, and I thought to myself, okay, I'm looking at, buying some meat, 2 pounds of hamburger. And I thought to myself, all right, so $10.85, that's the going price. I remember, and I thought to myself, okay, don't do that because you get back in the Wayback Machine. I remember when you'd have sales of 99 cents a pound, and you go stock up. That was a pretty good price even then. But now, for a pound, well over $5, closer to $6. For a pound of meat. Well, anybody old enough to remember? I'm guessing it's still out there. The hamburger helper.
Yeah.
The helper was helping you stretch the dollar. The filler, hamburger filler. That's what it was about, and that's exactly what families did. My growing up, my parents did it. My dad was military, and it was one income. We had 5 kids, and so that's what you did. It's been done, for a long, long time, for generations. It's what's funny too is you look at a lot of the foods that become kind of hip, and it comes from basically the poor and middle class and what they eat. Oh, you're eating the chicken wings? Really? That's interesting. How do they taste? And then all of a sudden, for a dozen chicken wings, that's $35. Most expensive part of the chicken. And
I remember 10. You want to know? You really want to know how old I am? I remember chicken wing specials at bars, 10 wings for $1.
Yeah. Right.
That's how old I am.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And I'm still alive.
Right. I'm surprised pig snout or something hasn't come. Oh, really? You're eating the nose of the pig? Okay. How does it taste? Those are the things, I look at because in cutting corners or filling gaps in a family's budget, that's one of the things you have to do. You have to learn how to get creative in your cooking. You have to learn how to get creative in your budgeting. You have to do all of those things. And right now, it's only getting worse. Prices aren't going down. They're still going up at a healthy pace. And I don't know where that ends. I don't know how this is going to be, by the way, if Trump wins and the GOP wins the House and the Senate, they're going to have an uphill battle because Joe Biden broke the daylights out of everything, including inflation.
What will inflation be if Trump comes in with his promise?
Right.
10% across the board, tariffs on every product coming into the United States, and what does he say, 40, 50, 60% on everything from China?
You do that, and it's going to skyrocket.
And people may cheer, but when prices skyrocket, nobody's going to be happy.
No.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Most owner-operators leased to larger carriers are paid on a per-mile basis or a percentage of revenue per load. The per-mile basis is most prevalent among larger fleets. Percentage at smaller. Pay per mile tends to dominate discussions about pay just because it's easier to measure, and pay per mile often is wrongly used as the deciding factor in leasing to a carrier. While pay per mile can be a vital factor, it's not a cure for every ill, nor does it mean a big settlement check is coming an owner-operator's way. Why? Because pay per mile always must be considered in balance with gross revenue as well as total costs. Gross revenue can include flat mileage pay that varies by length of haul, percentage revenue pay, and more. Most importantly, though, for every revenue dollar generated, only part of that dollar is profit. But for every extra dollar of cost saved, the entire dollar contributes to profit. Knowing and understanding your cost to operate is fundamental to understanding the true value of any pay package. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Harley Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up following the bottom of the hour, guess who said it?
All right.
I could play the audio, but I'm not going to. I'm actually going to read the transcript.
All right.
So you can guess who said it.
All right.
And it just gives you an example of where we're going in society right now. Okay? Coming up.
Observing and analyzing the insanity. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara. Nightly on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. All right, who said this? All right, you ready?
All right.
Here we go. If we want to save our country, we should follow the advice good liberals have given us for decades and learn from other countries, especially those beacons of progressivism like Canada, England, and Scandinavia. And I agree we should, as long as we're honest about the lessons we're learning and as long as we're up to date on the current data, such as the unemployment rate in the U.S. is 3.8%, and in Canada it's 6.1%. And of the 15 North American cities with the worst air pollution, 14 are in Canada. I'm not citing these facts because I have it out for Canada. I love Canada and its people and always have, but I hate zombie lies. That's when things change, but what people say about them doesn't. Yes, for decades, places like Vancouver and Amsterdam and Stockholm seemed great because everything was free and all the energy we needed was produced by riding your bike to your job at the windmill. Canada was where all the treasured goals of liberalism worked perfectly. It was like NPR come to life, a giant, idealized blue state with single-payer health care, gun control, and abortion on polite demand. Canada was where every woke white college kid wearing pajama pants outdoor who had it up to here with America's racist patriarchy dreamt of living someday. I mean, besides Gaza. He continued, there's only one problem with thinking everything's better in Canada. It's not. Last year, Canada added 1.3 million people, which is a lot in 1 year, the equivalent of the U.S. adding 11 million migrants in 1 year. And now they're experiencing a housing crisis even worse than ours. And because of the mortgage debt, Canada has the highest debt-to-GDP ratio of any G7 nation. I don't know what that means, but it sounds bad. So does their vaunted healthcare system, which ranks dead last among high-income countries in access to primary health care and the ability to see a doctor in a day or two. And it's not for the lack of spending. Of the 30 countries with universal coverage, Canada spends over 13% of its economy on it, which is a lot of money for free health care. And again, honestly, Canada, I'm not saying any of this because I enjoy it. I don't, but I need to cite you as a cautionary tale to help my country. And the moral of the tale is the more you move too far left, and when you do, you wind up pushing the people in the middle to the right. Sweden opened its borders to over 1.5 million immigrants since 2010, and now 20% of its citizens are foreign-born, and its education system is tanking, and it has Europe's highest rate of gangland killings. And one result is that the far-right parties in the government are now there for the first time, to which liberals say blaming immigrants for the rising crime rate is racist. Yeah, but is it true? Of course it's true. It's not a coincidence the quality of life went down after the Somali gangs started a drug turf war using hand grenades. Calling it racist doesn't solve the problem. It hands future elections to someone who will solve the problem, who will, I promise, you're not going to like. Bill Maher. last Friday.
Once again, reality setting in.
And what he is saying is exactly what we have said all along. And apparently he's coming to the realization because, as far as I know, I don't remember him coming out against Canada's healthcare system back when we were talking about our healthcare system.
No. I don't ever remember that from him.
I don't ever remember that. But it's the fact that you can't deny when reality, as we said before, it doesn't matter. Remember when we were talking healthcare, nationalized healthcare, and people would say, well, Canada's doing it wrong. We would do it right. I'm like, oh, my God, this sounds like the Cold War. Well, communism actually is wonderful. It's just the way people are implementing it doesn't work.
Right. If we have different people on that same horrible idea, it'll be better.
Right.
We're a larger nation, so it won't be as bad. Or, no, here's the logic. We're a larger nation, so it will implode faster. The costs will be greater.
Well, as I know I've always said, when we say you can manipulate an economy, but you can't change economics. You cannot change the way that people react to incentive and disincentive. And so when that argument came up, well, Canada does it wrong or this country does it wrong, we would do it right.
Yeah.
Economics doesn't care the title of the title of your country, the name of your country. Economics, it doesn't matter. To economics, it doesn't matter. So, well, we're the United States. We do it right. That means nothing.
Yeah.
In the real world, that means nothing.
Goes nowhere. And it's, again, this idea of that pendulum. We've been saying it for years. Eventually, the pendulum has to go back in the other direction. But part of the pendulum wants to keep going much further and much faster to the left. And that's always going to be the case.
Oh, and then he railed on, because I actually saw it, he railed, but he got into some nasty words. Remember the teacher, the transgender teacher?
Yeah.
With the huge fake breasts?
Mm-hmm.
And Bill Maher even said, and the people are saying, well, what's wrong with it? What's wrong with it? Well, what's wrong with it? People should be able to accept it. He goes, children! You're doing this to children!
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay. Okay, he was sort of, I'll give him credit, he was sort of defending DeSantis at times with the whole Disney thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because remember he said, was that when he said DeSantis reads?
Yeah, which was actually pretty early on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the left hates this guy. The left media hates this guy because this guy reads.
Yeah.
Or they fear this guy, I think is what he said. Because this guy reads. And comparing him to Trump or Bush or anybody else in the past. And these are the points made over and over again where we looked at it and said, look, first of all, you go to war with parents, you're not going to win. Sorry. You're not going to win this. And then beyond that, society in general, looking at this kind of being paraded in front of children over and over again, and then them fighting for it, the radicals fighting for it as if it's a new civil rights era. You're not going to win that with our society. You're just not. But the radicals, and this radical behavior goes all the way up to this White House.
And when you see, when you see, for example, the Never Trumpers. Let's look over the last 4 or 5 years. When you look at the Never Trumpers, they're really not talking where Trump stands on the issues for the most part.
No, they're not.
Because we've said it before. I kidded a guy, a buddy of mine, Jerry, was on a boat with a friend of his, and this is somewhere, and I don't know where the body of water they were on outside of Tampa, and so they were driving on the boat, and he said, look, and he had a video of the boat, and the guy had Trump stickers on the back, and or not Trump stickers, flags flying. And he said, "Look at this guy," and he sent a picture. One of his friends put a picture. He goes, "Look what's in his hand," and he had it was right beer.
Oh,
like right-wing beer, and he had a MAGA hat on. And I said, well, and I just kid. I said, well, I'm right-wing. Trump is pretty moderate. So does the beer, just teasing him? And I put the smile face on it. That's
right.
Still waiting for the response back. But when I say that, I'm just, that's just the truth about Trump. He's a moderate. And it's funny because we had this discussion when I was, I saw a bunch of people I hadn't seen in a long time when I was in Buffalo, like five, six different guys. And it got to talking about, they knew know me and my talk radio career in Buffalo and everything else. And so we got into this about, just discussion and tribalism. And even though every single one of them was for Trump, every single one, they know Trump's flaws.
Yeah.
And we said this a long time ago. You don't want to promote it if you're out there because you want to push it in a campaign, but they know it. Everybody knows what Trump's flaws are.
Yeah.
It's like we haven't had, maybe a year ago was the last call where we had somebody call up or message us or whatever and say, because when we had said something about some lie that Trump had said, and we said, that's stupid. Why are you lying about that? And a woman was furious. That was the woman that called and said Trump has never lied once. It was like, wow, stop it.
The thing is that you don't have to even get into the weeds on it because, as you mentioned, it's already priced in. For this election cycle, it's definitely priced in.
Oh, that's all. That's all completely priced in. But the fact is, what I'm saying is the left is saying that all Trump people are just basically a cult, that they don't think for themselves, and that's my point. Yes, they do. They know Trump's flaws.
Yeah.
They people can pick out flaws in everybody, except for you.
Yeah, that hasn't happened yet.
No, nobody's ever picked out a flaw on you.
Yeah,
me, yes. And so...
Yeah, by the way, don't ask my wife any questions, period. She's not taking questions right now.
But that's the whole point that the left is trying to say, that any Trump supporter is not a critical thinker. They're just these clones out there, or these drones, or, like drone bees, or the worker bees that question nothing.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
Well,
of course,
but it goes back to
It
goes back to what you said early on. But that's how they think.
You're right.
Because they just kind of boom, and then they cling on. Look, might there be some that are just fiercely loyal, and it doesn't matter what happens, and then they want to ignore it? Well, yeah, that lady that called us is one example. They just don't want to get into the weeds on the discussion. But the fact of the matter is, most people, and if you were to sit and talk to her, if we talk to her one-on-one, yeah, well, you're right, and okay, yeah, and we get that quite a bit. We've seen that over the years. You don't have to invest that much into the person. The question is always, are they qualified as a public servant? Do you believe that they will do what is necessary? They're not going to do everything I want them to do. I don't care who they are. And that's what it comes down to, too. And, of course, with the middle, it's with the independent voter, it's you've got a tougher standard, and you've got to win them over. But that's the case every election cycle.
Yeah, the point I want to make is when you look at the people that have changed, you see the change in Bill Maher, you see the change in Barry Weiss, you see the change, former New York Times writer, you've seen the change in Michael Schellenberger, in Matt Taibbi. You can go down, and they are specific in their criticisms. You look at a Bill Kristol.
Yeah, right.
You look at the Never Trumpers out there. They hate Trump, but they're defending Biden, and he's indefensible from anybody who's a former conservative. You read these former liberals or people that are still old-time liberals in their criticism of Biden and the left, it is specific to the absolute issue at hand.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, and that's because every issue right now is reality. Nothing is in the abstract.
Right.
Nothing.
And Trump on the issues, for the most part, is a moderate.
Right.
Which people look at and they go, oh, okay. Well, that at least makes sense.
Right.
The left is insane.
Right.
It's simple. I mean, if the media can't figure it out, it's because they don't want to figure it out, what's going on
Right.
right now. 866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome, and thanks for being here this morning. There's another headline. Major media organizations urge Biden and Trump to debate. See the Wall Street Journal going after Trump as a hypocrite for not debating in the primary?
He didn't have a need to debate in the primary. I mean, there were a few polls that showed a couple of the other candidates getting a fairly decent bump, but nothing that was really threatening at all to him becoming the nominee from any of those other candidates. Tell me why he would do it. There's no need for him to do it.
No, politically, there was no reason for him to do it at all.
None.
We'll get to more of that coming up.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You know what was interesting yesterday? New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu was saying that basically it was on with Stephanopoulos that the Trump trials will not have a major political ramification because people see this as reality TV. Like, oh my gosh. I went, wow.
Okay, that's interesting. That's
I know.
a different way of wording it than I was wording it in my mind, because I was thinking kind of the same thing. It's that it's become a show of sorts. It really has become the new daytime television. If anybody's following along, I mean, it really is a reality show. But that's kind of the way I saw it. I thought, this is becoming a show, and here's the problem, is that you don't have anybody really taking it too seriously outside of the court setting, outside of the actual players that are in each case. You know, the media looking at it, I think early on they were hoping that this would damage Trump, and so far it hasn't.
It's interesting because explaining, if people want to know what's going on, at Federalist.com, they did just a great wrap-up on it. Said the saga began years ago when Stormy Daniels claimed to have had an affair with Trump in 2006. Trump denied the allegations. During the 2016 presidential campaign, Trump's former attorney, Michael Cohen, paid Daniels $130,000 to sign a non-disclosure agreement about the alleged affair. The money did not come from campaign funds. Cohen, who covered the payments up front, sought reimbursement from Trump. He noted the invoice reimbursements as legal services, as opposed to something more direct like, quote, reimbursement for settlement payment regarding extramarital sex, as law experts John Yoo and John Shu put it. Bragg has elevated a New York State misdemeanor charge of falsifying business records which isn't true in this case to begin with. But even if it was, the statute of limitations ran out years ago on it.
Mm-hmm.
But he's trying to elevate the misdemeanor charge, which is bogus itself, into a federal crime by alleging he did it to cover up the federal crime of hiding campaign expenditures. And Trump did so in order to influence the 2016 presidential election. Now, what's bogus about the entire thing is Trump used his own money. He didn't use campaign funds.
Right.
It says those claiming the settlement with Stormy Daniels was a campaign-related expense and a violation of campaign finance law don't have any legal leg to stand on. This is particularly so given the Justice Department tried to make a similar legal claim against former Democratic presidential candidate John Edwards without success. And as everybody knows, prior to Bragg bringing this up, the federal government looked into Trump's so-called campaign violations. Both declined to pursue the case. Why? Trump used his own money. He didn't use campaign money.
Right.
And because reimbursing someone for hush money payment does not fit the definition of an in-kind campaign contribution. In fact, candidates do not have to disclose expenses that would have been incurred even if no campaign existed. It is highly likely that Trump would have paid Daniels regardless, just to avoid any marital strife or embarrassment to himself or his family. Wrote John Yoo, a professor of law at the University of California at Berkeley, and Shue, a legal scholar and commentator who served in the administrations of the Bushes. Federal campaign law strictly prohibits candidates from using any campaign funds for what are considered personal expenses. Say you buy a car and 6 months later you decide to run for office. You can't use your monthly car payments as a campaign expense. Let's face it, Biden's weaponized U.S. Department of Justice would have been all over Trump had the former president run afoul of that law. Has Donald Trump used campaign funds to enter into a settlement, into payment with this woman? And if he did, had Donald Trump used campaign funds to enter into a settlement, into payment with this woman, the DOJ would have gone after him, and they did not. The settlement has been described as hush money, but there's a long list of famous leftists who have contributed, who have demanded such non-disclosure agreements. Taylor Swift, Justin Bieber, Miley Cyrus, Tiger Woods. And as they say, of course, the statute of limitations on the alleged crimes has expired, but Bragg is pushing New York's tolling provision that stops the clock when the suspect is out of state. It's hard to believe the legislature would have intended that serving as president of the United States counts as being out of state, said David Shapiro, a financial crimes specialist and former FBI agent, told CBC News in Canada. This case is going to have serious problems, Mark Bedro, a criminal defense attorney and former New York City prosecutor, told CBC News before the grand jury came back more than a year ago with its indictment against Trump. He said Bragg's decision to pursue formal charges is stunning. They shoot down Bragg's assertion that had Trump campaign disclosed the in-kind payment before the election, it would have affected the outcome. Trump lost New York by 20 points. So would he have lost by more votes? Besides, the payment would not have been required to be reported until months after the election. Again, imagine that a district attorney decided to charge Secretary of State Tony Blinken and Hunter Biden for an illegal, undisclosed, in-kind campaign contribution when they lied in October of 2020 to conceal the abandoned laptop that it actually belonged to Hunter. But the problem is they're saying a Manhattan grand jury, if you get all Democrats on it, that's the problem. We stated this a couple times last week. The problem is you have rogue prosecutors, rogue judges, and rogue juries, and all of it is on the left, and all of it, when you see it out there, so much of it is against Trump.
Well, and there's the thing is that you come up in this case, you come up with something that where it doesn't apply in terms of breaking the law, but you state that it does, and then tell the jury all you have to do is come up with the conclusion that it did do what I say it did, and I'm saying it broke the law. Well, okay. Yep. Looks like law breaking to me, even though it doesn't apply. He did all the things that Bragg said he did, but it wasn't breaking the law. But Bragg says it's breaking the law. Doesn't matter. Guilty. That's all you need. A friendly jury. That's all you've ever needed. Or one shadow of a doubt. That's the way it works. But politically, if Bragg is willing to do this, if we've seen this now, how many cases that are brought where it doesn't apply the way they say it does? But it doesn't matter. The civil case in New York, Georgia, the Fonnie Willis case, doesn't matter. We'll just say it does. And you tell people, well, it applies here. And, well, they did what what the prosecutor said they did. And the prosecutor says it's against the law. So, yeah, that's fine. I'll go along with it. If you've got that many people in the justice system in general, there's no doubt you can find a friendly jury.
What I wonder is, and because I don't know the legal process in New York, why isn't this is such a bogus indictment? Why is a judge allowing it to go any further? And the same, I would say the same in Georgia. Have you noticed? You and I remember the day that he went in for the arraignment on this and all the analysis on it.
Yeah,
you couldn't find any legal person that looked at that and said, "Oh, Bragg's got a great case here." Everybody said, "Oh my God, this is so incredibly weak."
Well, everybody was scrambling. Remember to find the crime.
Yeah, and
the liberal media was scrambling to find the crime.
And even when you look at the Georgia case for the RICO, when you explain what RICO is, I can't. There's nobody that's stating, well, no, the RICO charges that the Trump campaign is a criminal enterprise. Now, you'll get somebody in the left just to call it a criminal enterprise because any campaign that wants to put Trump in office automatically is a criminal enterprise, right?
Yeah.
But it's not.
Right.
The reality is it's not. And so that's what you're dealing with right now. Well, if they say it is, it is. Well, the law doesn't say it is.
Right.
But the Bragg law, I mean, the RICO case is a horrible case because that falls apart when you realize, well, you need to have a criminal enterprise, and they're trying to make that the Trump campaign was a criminal enterprise. Well, it's not.
Right.
It's like a union isn't a criminal enterprise.
And just because they keep repeating that it is doesn't make it so.
Well, when you see the corruption in unions over the years, did the government ever state that unions then automatically become a criminal enterprise because you had presidents of unions using the pension funds in an illegal way? Did that make the entire union a criminal? No, it made the people inside the union because the union has other purposes.
Yep.
Just like a campaign.
Right.
And once you make the argument, I haven't heard any legal expert on that case or the Bragg case make the point of why it's legit. Not one. Have you?
No.
Not one.
No.
There is no debate on the other side that, no, we have a legal point here.
Yeah, that's the tell. You would have every liberal media outlet would have multiple legal experts explaining why it applies.
So all you get is from the left. And notice this, I mean, it's obvious to see, whether it was Stephanopoulos' question of Sununu yesterday, none of it is on the specifics. It's, well, if Trump is found guilty, would you still support him?
Right. They already jumped to that point.
Right. Without ever examining whether the case is legitimate or not.
Right.
The only one that has to prove himself is Trump. To them, they don't ask that a prosecutor or a judge, prove themselves that they're actually, prosecuting a law being broken or whether they're even following the law. No, that's assumed that the justice system is perfect and Trump is the only one that has to prove his innocence.
Well, no, that's it. That's how you start with when you get a friendly jury. Well, I mean, come on. Prosecution wouldn't bring this case if it weren't a crime.
Yeah, they would.
Of course they would.
That's why when Sununu told Stephanopoulos, no, because this is like reality TV. That's why the polls are out there showing. Remember, what was it? The last poll showed he had more of a chance. Trump had a better chance of winning the election against Biden if he was convicted in the classified documents
case. He
case.
actually gained a few points.
Why? People aren't stupid.
Nope.
People can smell when they sit there and go, there's a two-tier system of justice here. The left can do whatever they want, and they make up crimes. And Trump, if you ever want to get the perfect example, Trump is the person to give you that perfect example of it. You could find other cases, but people wouldn't care. Well, this average citizen was screwed over. Yeah, whatever, whatever. But when it's Trump, people start paying attention.
Right.
And that's one of the things when I talked to a bunch of Trump supporters over the weekend. It's a two-tier system of justice. The system is crumbling.
And if they'll use it here, they'll use it everywhere. Because that's it. If they get a successful conviction on even just one of these, then it will be nonstop, and there will be no end. There will be no end.
866-98 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, I did see this. I think is it Prime? Who's showing Civil War? Because all of a sudden that got the buzz over the weekend. I'm reading here an editorial, just the headline: Civil War really isn't about the second American Civil War, about a second civil American war. I've seen that movie. I've seen the previews of it.
Yes, Prime.
I'm trying to think. It's okay. Still, Eric Garland's new film, Civil War, isn't actually about a second American Civil War, but rather using this familiar setting and proximity to paint a grim portrait of the dangers of atrocities of war. This film could take place anywhere. Setting it in the United States just makes it hit that much closer to home. So,
yeah. Yeah.
And where's it being shown?
I think it did. It was in the box office.
Was it?
For a minute, but I don't know if it still is.
And I just saw the headline right now, and I just went, oh, I saw the trailer of it. And so I'm like, okay.
All right. Yeah. Number one of the box office for this past weekend. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. 25.7 million. Wow.
Oh, okay. There it is. All right.
All right, so 25.7 million on how many screens? That doesn't seem like a number one to me.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right.
I just happened to see the trailer over the weekend. I went,
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know what it reminded me of? Red Dawn.
Yeah, it's what's interesting is in reading about it over the past few weeks, I thought to myself, okay, this could go either way. This could be set up to be, depict that, as a nation, we've never been as divided and we're heading to our next civil war because politically, blah, 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 based on, the players in the movie. So I don't know. I guess I'll wait and see. I'll definitely wait for it to be available on streaming.
Budget was $50 million.
All right.
Box office so far 25.7. Trying to see if they don't say how many. The release, okay. They don't say how many. Just say the film was previously scheduled to be released on April 26th. It was released on April 12th in the United States. and in the United Kingdom.
Okay, so maybe there's a wider opening with more
Okay,
screens
there
coming.
it is. United States and Canada, the film was projected to gross 18 to 24 million from 3,838 theaters. The widest ever R-rated release by an independent studio in its opening weekend.
All right.
The film made $10.8 million on the first day, including $2.9 million from Thursday night previews. It went on to debut to $25.7 million, topping Hereditary as the biggest opening weekend in A24's history. That's a movie production firm.
Right.
As well as the studio's first film to top the box office.
Okay. But for that many theaters, that doesn't sound like a huge... It being number one with 25.7?
No. Okay, yeah, it did. It topped
it's
topped the
number one.
box office. Yeah.
Usually that's like, 60, 80 million at least. Is there nothing else showing at the theaters? I'm just asking the question because that seems like a really low number. If you were to say opening day, like 25.7 million for one of the comic book superhero movies on opening day, it was like, okay, yeah, it's going to do, 50, 60 million for the weekend or whatever. But 25.7 seems low to me. I don't know, especially with inflation.
Oh, yeah.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thank you so much for being here. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. You can listen when and where you choose if you can't listen live overnight to one of our great radio station affiliates. All right, I did see the New York Post film critic on the new movie Civil War. And this is this may be the best one-sentence review of it because I burst out laughing. I went, oh, okay, well, then nobody's going to take it seriously because that's the question. Well, is Civil War coming out right now? Is it indicative of what's going to happen to the United States? Is that what we're dealing with? Because you and I have been in talk radio for so long. Every year there's some new secessionist movement, and everybody is sure, and we get the calls, no, it's over, the Civil War is happening. Right?
Yeah, it's we're on the brink of civil war.
Yeah, you get that
at every turn.
Right, you get that. You get a lot when you're in talk radio. You hear people saying it. I remember a couple of years ago. Oh, one of the guys. I think it was one of the Texas secessionist movements. It was like where it's going to happen this time. Like, no, it's not.
Yeah, no.
I want to get on and get my fair time. No, it's not going to.
Yeah,
happen.
no.
We're not. Texas is not seceding. Even to what my pretend fantasy was of Texas seceding from the Union.
Right.
And then annexing Mexico. And then combining all of our energy resources together that would be managed by the state of Texas, and we would change our name to Texaco.
Right. But apparently that's already taken.
But the New York Post film critic wrote, listen to this. The Civil Wars, the movie, the shtick, is that it's not specifically political. For instance, as the U.S. devolves into enemy groups of secessionist states, Texas and California have banded together to form the Western Forces. That such an alliance could ever occur.
Yeah, it's not happening.
It's about as likely as a Sweet Green restaurant, Kentucky Fried Chicken combo restaurant.
Yeah.
Sweet Green, green for people that don't know, serve salads.
Yeah, right.
Oh, my gosh, I didn't know that. Well, then it's a comedy. Look, Texas and California, our National Guards become our Army?
You know, from a Texas perspective, we'd like our Kern County and our Orange County back. But
And parts of San Diego suburbs.
right, we can make a deal. We'll send you Austin.
Yeah, we're not going to get a civil war. We're going to trade.
We're going to trade.
It'll be a trade.
Yeah, but Hollywood often does this, and I guess there's nothing wrong on the creative spectrum with coming up with the what if, except for this what if is, you know, if you're talking about this kind of idea, then it's been talked about to the nth degree. There's really nothing that hasn't been explored here. I do believe, though, if you talk about a state seceding, if
Yes.
you did a series, now it would have to be accurate. No fantasy like, you know, California and Texas coming together. If you did something and it was accurate as to what would have to happen, what the process would actually be, I think that would be fascinating.
No, I think so, too, because I know what I would do.
Mm.
Man, and you and I have not discussed this at all. We're not sitting here as producers saying, okay, we need to have a Civil War. We need to have a Civil War film about a future Civil War in the United States that people would actually go, oh, wow. But what causes civil wars? What caused the Revolutionary War, which was a civil war in its own? We were part of England. We felt we had no representation.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll look at that first one. That's what gets you to civil wars, when you actually don't have representation. That could lead you there. And when states actually secede.
Right.
Now, what is the process of states seceding without the permission that they're never going to get? And you know why? No state will ever successfully secede, which could cause a civil war, could cause a war between the union and that state.
Mm-hmm.
If you just said we're out, well, no, you got to take your share of the debt with you. You don't just get to leave.
Right.
What's your share of the debt? You got to take that with you.
Right.
And how do you negotiate that one?
And you got to buy back your national parks.
Right. If you're going to secede, right, the national parks and everything else, everything is so intertwined. But what would cause, hypothetically, we're not advocating a civil war, just so you know. But what would cause a civil war? What things in history can we look at that say, okay, this could cause a civil war? Representation. It's when you look at what liberals wish to do, and we know the electoral college has to go, right?
Right.
The Senate has to go. These are all things being promoted by liberals and Democrats. There's nobody on the right talking about this. You know, when you talk about who's trying to take this Constitution that we have here and water it down to make it something different, where we're not a constitutional republic anymore, but where they wish to lead us to is more of a popular vote country across the board on the federal level.
Right.
Well, then you concentrate power in a few states. That's where you get a civil war. The Senate exists because the Founding Fathers understood. And the reason you have bicameral legislatures in all modern Western democracies is just because of that. Every part of the country must feel that they have some representation. The Senate gives them that. The Electoral College gives them that. It's that simple. If you don't feel you have representation, then why are you with a particular country?
Right.
If what you say doesn't matter, yet you can be taxed, and you have no representation, that's what leads you to a civil war. If you want to go as far and you know, so you look at those particular things, and that will that will cause anger when you try to water down, freedom of speech, and when you try to water down, because we have, this country is an extremely diverse country. You come in and you try to change the First Amendment to the United States. You're going to have protests if you do that. May not be civil war, but that would be protest. You could have the Second Amendment if you attempted to get rid of the Second Amendment. That would cause probably, mass riots.
Right.
I don't see that happening. You're not going to be able to get, especially where this country is going. We're giving total hypotheticals, but the real hypotheticals of when you look at history, what has caused it, it is a lack of representation from certain parts of the country.
Yeah, and when you look at it, you look at the reasons why some on the right have talked about it and said, okay, this state, should secede or this should happen, versus what the left cites as the reason. We hate Trump.
Right.
And when you walk through it, this is why if you're talking about any of the movements or conversations that people on the right have had, then it's based on, all right, the erosion of the Constitution, what the left wants to do, and everything else. We haven't reached the point where they've successfully done away with the Senate. We haven't reached the point where they've successfully done away with the Supreme Court. Not that they don't want to, but all those conversations, that's what spurs on then we need to just secede.
Well, and I will also say this, because we're in uncharted territory here, but you and I have talked about the fact of the federal government not following federal law, and in doing so hurting states. And we talk about the case that will eventually get to the Supreme Court, the state of Texas, where the federal government is not following federal law. They're trying to find every exemption to cause chaos at the border that harms states.
Right.
And so you get to a point, as we said, that's a big issue, and will be a big Supreme Court issue when it gets up there. Does this country was formed by the states? It wasn't a country that said, the 13 colonies that said just appeared and as an alien ship over the entire 13 colonies and said, you are all going to become a country. It was the 13 colonies deciding to become a country with the federal government with very, very limited roles.
Right.
Now, that has changed. The federal government's now involved in things they should have never been involved with. And we see what happens, runaway debt that we have, and the insanity that's going to happen to our fiscal system when the blank hits the fan whenever down the road. That's going to be a problem. States, for example, can't do it. They can't borrow money the same way, which is why it's always preferred to spend money closer, in more local governments or state governments, because they're more responsible to the people and they can't go into debt the same way as the federal government.
Right.
You want representation, especially when it comes to money, as close as you can get to the people, because there's more accountability at that point.
Right.
Think about property taxes when they go up and people protesting property taxes. It gets loud and it gets quick. And so it gets loud and very quickly when those kind of things happen, when, taxes or whatever happens. Nuclear power plant, in your backyard, the NIMBY effect.
Right.
People rally very quickly to things like that they view as harmful or whatever, which is why we have stated, even though nuclear power should be part of the mix, and most people say they like it, not in my backyard, though. Your backyard, fine.
Right.
And so I look at things like because a great question with the federal government in Texas, and this is a question that I would ask, I don't know if it's been asked this way specifically, how far can the federal government go in a premeditated and calculated way not to follow federal law, that then inflicts harms on states. If it inflicts harms on states, do states have any recourse to protect themselves in a system of government where the states are what created the federal government to begin with? What came first, the chicken or the egg?
Right. And we believe they have recourse. States have recourse.
Yes, I do. Yeah, I do. Especially when the federal government, in a premeditated and calculated way, doesn't follow the current law, which then harms states.
Right. And, there's, and that's what it comes down to on that case. And I can't wait to hear all this play out, because this is much different, as we have pointed out several times, than the Arizona case, when the Obama administration went after Arizona. This is a completely different case, and we'll see where it goes. But, yeah, the idea of a civil war, what it would take to get there. And we're not on the brink of civil war. Is there a cultural war going on right now? Yeah.
Cultural civil war?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
No doubt.
Is it a cold civil war?
Right.
Yeah, probably.
Right.
In many people's minds. 866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up, more on Iran and Israel and the United States response. Also coming up, what did I have? There's a Supreme Court decision the other day that was really interesting that we wanted to hit. I'm looking at this headline here. California shoppers flood 99-cents only shops ahead of their closure.
Right. Yeah.
People are not happy. Apparently, if you raise the minimum wage to $20 an hour, it hurts some businesses.
Yeah, they're going to have to pass it along to the consumer, or, in this case, close the doors.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. How's everybody doing? Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I was just reading here because we were talking about the movie Civil War. That's and by the way, I may not. I don't know. I haven't been to a movie theater in a while. Probably won't go to see that. I'll probably wait till it comes to video, as I do most, or becomes digital, which might not be long.
These days, you can, it's like a few weeks, and then it will say, still in theaters. Yeah.
And we were talking about the fact that it's not believable because in the movie, California and Texas join up forces.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where you lose me.
Yeah, so if California and Texas join up forces, who are we fighting?
Right.
Vermont and Illinois?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I haven't seen the movie. Are we fighting Florida?
Yeah, who's fighting who in the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to know this.
Without
Just give us the map.
without giving the movie away. But
Right.
I mean, that's disappointing. That was as disappointing as when in Red Dawn 2, they went from the China, we were fighting there was the Chinese invading us to the North Koreans invading the United States.
Right.
I mean, that wasn't believable.
Right.
And we said, come on. And the reason that they went from the Chinese, in Red Dawn 2, that the United States was fighting China is because they knew if it was North Korea, they could do tens of millions of dollars in box office in China.
Right. Exactly.
But it wasn't believable that North Korea attacked us.
No.
And so in this movie, it's like, well,
Not in that way.
well,
Yeah.
look, it's all fictional, and so we didn't want to tell the truth and get people really upset, so we pretended that Texas and California would join forces to fight a
Yeah.
civil war against the United States or
Yeah.
whomever we're fighting at
Right.
that point. Texas would say, look, if we're joining California, then we're going to do the energy thing. you guys aren't going to. We're going to provide all the fossil fuels for our military equipment.
Let us handle that. You guys handle movies.
Could you guys, and how could you be the propaganda arm for our movement?
Right.
You've got a ton of. We need to allocate our abilities based on the things that we do best.
Right.
So fossil fuels to fuel our army, our California, Texas Army, comes from Texas, and all the propaganda films come from Hollywood.
Right. Now we're going to have to rethink your approach on propaganda, but yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Right. We'll have to write it. Then you guys just produce it.
This is really interesting. This was from. This was a National Review: How to Prevent an American Decline.
Too late.
And the following is adapted from Bing West's remarks in the annual Greater Issues address to the South Carolina Corps of Cadets at the Citadel in South Carolina on March 28th. If America is to face its challenges and remain great, the rising generation will need to make a compelling case for fiscal solvency at home and steadfast strength abroad. Well, he addresses first your success. Let's start by quoting how Google describes your college. The Citadel is a hard school. It's one of the most challenging places. If you want to make something of yourself and actually learn something, come to the Citadel. But to excel takes a thick skin. A thick skin. Whoa, you're Generation Z. AI Chat GPT says Generation Z faces unique mental health challenges, including high rates of anxiety, depression, and stress. With a tough skin, you're not holding up the image of Gen Z. In fact, you're the opposite. You work hard to be admitted to the top public university in the South. You're in good physical shape, well disciplined, and serious about learning. All 2,400 of you get up at 5 every morning and make your bed with tight corners. You rarely turn on your iPhones, and you ignore social media apps. You have failed at some tasks and done well at others. You know how to lead and how to follow. You study, strive, and compete within an atmosphere of integrity. I saw a small sign in a classroom: I will not lie, cheat, or steal, nor tolerate others who do. You do not see that pledge in most colleges, including the declining Ivies. You've absorbed it into your bloodstream, into your DNA, the ingredients for success. You benefit from the reputation of the citadel forged by the generations who went before. The result is that you're set up to do well in life, a theme that I will return to. Issue 2, how do you view life? You know, you do think about it. Everything is how an individual, how you deal with your environment. Everything.
Yeah.
You know, I look at the culture that I grew up in, and there was not an expectation that you would get anything from anyone. You know what I started reading? I think I told you this a couple of months ago, that I never get a chance to do the recreational reading that I want to do. You know, I just never do. It's so, there's so much stuff when you do a 5-hour show 5 days of the week. That's one of the things I haven't been able to do. So what I've been doing is when I've been flying, I've been saying, okay, this is going to be a time for recreational reading.
Yeah.
And a book I've had for, 10 years, The Life of the Actor James Garner. I always loved the Rockford Files and just loved everything he ever did.
Yeah, right.
And it's interesting because, he was a lifelong Democrat. But, again, when he grew up, a Democrat was different than a Democrat is today.
Mm-hmm.
But it was interesting because he was talking about growing up in Norman, Oklahoma, and said, and this is really fascinating, that you could trust everyone.
Yeah.
Very few people were con artists. He said, the people that you met, he goes, everybody, you had to work, nobody gave you anything. But people were honest with you. And he said a handshake means everything. You don't need to sign a deal. You shake hands on it.
And you knew what it meant.
Yes.
You knew the moment you shook somebody's hand what it meant. And if someone was shaking your hand, you knew what that meant. You knew why. And, I've looked at like modern technology, all these items and features of modern technology that set up this, okay, we need this kind of privacy, that kind of privacy, also set up shade for people who want to do bad things to other people.
Yeah.
And I think of that. I think to myself, look, there should be a concern as to what the government sees, how they monitor people, and what they're going to allow them to see, and also what we put out there. The people that, scream about Facebook, you do not own this, and I do not give you the right. Actually, you already did when you signed up for a Facebook account.
I know.
And then they post everything about their birthday and how old they are and their mom and her maiden name. And, hey, if you could just give us the rest of those numbers with your Social Security, we'd be complete. It's, your password, if you don't mind. Those are it's, we look at it because most people don't look at that as either like intrusive or I've always looked at it as, well, I don't know how much I want to share with anybody else. I look at it also as when you see these features on technology and how people, what their mindset is, that determines how they're going to use that technology for good or bad. And, James Garner has made a very good point in that there was a time when there was much greater trust in people.
Yeah.
And there's a reason we don't have it today.
And he said, he said it was there in Oklahoma, not in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Because you didn't meet people of honor.
Right.
Because when he went to Hollywood, that's what he found out.
Deals were being made, and those deals were being made to favor everybody else in the equation, not you.
And he did a ton of stuff. I mean, I only got through 150 pages. I fell asleep. I was up too early to catch the plane. But I can't wait to read the rest of the book. Very interesting character, and I love the shows that he did. And he really challenged. He sued. He sued a bunch of the movie studios and stuff like that. Or
Yeah,
the television studios.
Right.
But it was just interesting to hear this, speech about, how to prevent an American decline. He talks about here because he's talking. This is the speaker to the Citadel in March, and he said, "How do you view life?" And he talks about that on dozens of battlefields over 3 wars, I shared meals, laughed, and patrolled with more than 30 grunts who were killed close to me. One of the things he talks about succeeding in life, spending time now to get straight with mortality.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. You just don't hear that kind of advice put that way. Think about what makes you who you are. Sometimes in the next 10 to 20 years, you'll get knocked flat on your butt. No one gets through this life without being knocked down hard. The reason may be divorce, being fired or passed over, whatever. You will be stunned and probably won't know what to do. And
Well,
it's
it's interesting. I had this conversation over the weekend. One of my nieces was out of town. Her house burned to the ground on Saturday. Everything gone, ashes. And, she's had in the last year and a half, it just seems you look at these things and it's like, tragedy after tragedy. And we all go, there's this saying, we're all going through something, some worse than others. The good news is no one got hurt in that fire. Possessions can be replaced.
Oh, it's still
but
a
you
horrible
look
shock,
at the entire. It's everything. I mean, she posted pictures yesterday, and they sent some to me. It's everything. It's gone. It's just, and they basically the fire got so out of hand, they just had to let it burn. They contained it to make sure it wouldn't spread to other homes, but it's devastating. A home she bought just about 2 or 3 months ago. And is, there we go. You're not going to get through this without going through some tragedy, some tragic moments in life.
He writes, come that day when you're knocked flat on your butt, take out an envelope and write down what burns in your soul. It might be family, job, or career, whatever it is. Follow your faith in yourself because you have grit. If you didn't have grit, you wouldn't be here today talking about these Citadel students at the Citadel.
Sure.
That's the second issue, then, is how you view life. The third one we'll get to here in a moment, but it's really the third issue is your role in safeguarding our beloved nation.
Yeah.
This is great stuff. Really is.
Yeah.
But I love that one. I love the second one.
Yeah.
Get straight with mortality and get straight that things are going to suck at times.
Right. And it's about how you deal with those issues and the strongest, especially those who defend this nation. Think about that kind of strength that those individuals have. I mean, it's amazing to witness.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Drivers must always be prepared for a roadside inspection. This means drivers should always have their personal, vehicle, and company credentials organized and ready, and having any shipment paperwork such as bills of lading or hazardous material shipment emergency response information organized and ready for the inspection official. Just an FYI, the top 2 violations written against drivers every year, as well as during Operation Road Check, are log general form and manner and log not current. Both are completely avoidable if the driver keeps the log accurate, compliant, and current at all times. Having the vehicle ready for inspection involves the driver conducting daily inspections and making sure any problems that are discovered are immediately corrected. Vehicle readiness also requires the company to make sure that the vehicle is current on all scheduled maintenance and that the maintenance schedule is adequate. This will make sure the driver is being given a sound vehicle to start with. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Harley Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome. And good morning. Thanks for being here this morning. Yeah, this we were just reading. It wasn't a commencement speech. It was just a speech at the Citadel. And it was from Bing West, an American author, Marine combat veteran, former Assistant Secretary of Defense for International Security Affairs during the Reagan administration. And he was talking about, what the students need to learn. And one of the points, the third point he brought up was the third issue in your role is your role in safeguarding our beloved nation. America is a declining power with an electorate bitterly divided. We are placating our enemies in order to rationalize reducing our military. The chaotic bug out from Kabul was shameful. The Houthis, a 9th century tribe, blockade the Red Sea. The administration impedes our production of energy and authorizes billions for Iran, our enemy. As China ratchets up pressure against Taiwan, our Navy is cut. Congress struggles to provide aid to Ukraine while the administration champions a wide-open southern border. For you, the worst is still to come. My generation of selfish politicians is loading a staggering debt onto your backs. Great civilizations are not murdered. They commit suicide. What that means is the countries that were great eventually lose it and run up bills they cannot pay. 17th century Spain, 18th century France, 20th century Britain all collapsed as global powers. Even more of an example to us is the condition of our condition as 4th century Rome. Its end came when the ruling class overindulged itself while dispensing bread and Colosseum spectaculars to keep favor with the people. The Roman Senate ran out of money to pay the legions. The soldiers walked off the job. It was the end. Now look at us today. Since World War II, America has reigned as the fair-minded global power. The past 7 decades have witnessed unequaled prosperity, freedom, and security for America and for dozens of nations protected by our power. We remain the world's greatest civilization, yet year after year, we complacently reduce the funds for our military, beset by adversaries. How do we expect to avoid the fate of Rome?
Wow.
All solid points.
Autonomous individuals in unison. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, tax day. Woohoo! Anybody wait till the last minute? I didn't. I waited till the last week.
Yeah.
It was a week ago I finished mine because a week ago was the eclipse.
Yeah.
Monday of last week. Wow, time's flying.
Right.
Oh.
That's my theory. The IRS made the eclipse happen to take your mind off of it, to, just distract you.
A lot of research out there. We brought you a couple of new polls out there, polls based on what the actual IRS figures are. Americans have no clue how much the rich pay in taxes. We brought that to you last week.
Right.
They have no clue.
Right.
It was unbelievable. I think the majority of Americans believe that that the rich pay between 1 and 12% of all taxes.
Right.
Like the top 1%.
Right.
They were completely off. It's like 45% last year. And so this entire thing is where Americans believe that the rich need to pay their fair share, yet they have no idea what the rich actually pay in taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm telling you. Is that where it comes from? Ignorance is bliss. These people that are walking around completely ignorant seem happy with the opinions that they hold that are based on completely false assumptions.
Yeah.
So it's like, I can virtue signal here, and
right.
I care.
And others are repeating it, so I'm not alone.
I care more than you because I'm clueless.
Yeah.
But this is, let me see, the Pew Research Center did this. A majority of Americans feel that corporations and wealthy people don't pay their fair share in taxes. 6 in 10 U.S. adults say they're bothered a lot. 6 in 10.
That's almost half.
By the feeling that some corporations, 61%, and some wealthy people, 60%, don't pay their fair share. Democrats are far more likely than Republicans to feel this way. Among Democrats and Democratic-leaning independents, about three-quarters say they're bothered a lot by the feeling that some corporations, 77% of Democrats, and some wealthy people, 77% of Democrats, don't pay their fair share. Now, remember, it's the Democrats that most believe that the top 1% only pays 1% of the federal taxes.
Right.
Remember when we did that, the poll that came out last week that we brought to you?
Right.
So Democrats are completely clueless as to what the rich pay in taxes, but they're upset with the rich paying taxes.
They're upset about their cluelessness.
Yes. Much smaller shares of Republicans and GOP leaners share these. 46% say this about corporations, and 43% say this about the wealthy. Well, if you're one of the 46% of Republicans who believe that corporations don't pay their fair share, I have one question for you. What the hell is wrong with you? Why do you advocate a stealth tax on yourself? I'm talking to Republicans here now. Democrats, hopeless.
Right.
Republicans, we don't view you as hopeless. 46% of you still believe we want more. You're concerned that corporations aren't paying their fair share.
Yeah.
Now, 43% say it about the wealthy. What should the fair share be? Remember, also in the poll last week, vast majority of people, is it 76% of people, don't think that anybody should pay over 30% of their income for taxes.
Right.
We know it's greater than that for the rich.
Well, no, it comes back to, and it, regardless of whether or not you identify as a Republican or a Democrat, if this is how you feel, then you don't have a clue. It gets back to our position on pretty much every poll. Can we qualify the respondents first? Look, we know Scott Rasmussen's team listens, and thank you. We've had Scott on the show. He's an excellent pollster himself. And has been doing this for a long, long time. And he knows, and they know, it's very expensive, especially if you were to have to qualify respondents. I'm sorry, can we see some ID, please? That's the problem, though, is that it would be way too expensive to actually get down to what people know and whether or not they're qualified to answer that question. Or, I guess, how much weight their opinion should hold. Because if you believe the rich pay 1% of the taxes and you believe they should pay a lot more, then you shouldn't be issuing an opinion on that. You should be getting the facts, and then you can decide.
Well, nobody, when you ask the question, what's fair share? Now, I've been in talk radio. This is my 35th year. No one has ever told me what the fair share of the rich should be.
No.
Ever.
The word fair is whatever's in their mind. That's why the left has used it, my gosh, how many decades successfully now? It's not fair. It's not fair. Yeah, they're right. It's not fair. Define fair.
Meanwhile, 2/3 of Americans support raising tax rates on large corporations and businesses. A similar share, 61%, support raising tax rates on households with annual incomes of over $400,000. Democrats are much more likely than Republicans to say those tax rates should increase. Yet the majority of Americans don't think anybody should be taxed over 30%. We're talking. How do you? I guess we can bring this to everybody and just say, okay, we're bringing this to you. This is where you think here, but you're completely clueless on this over here. Which then, how can you come to this judgment here if you're completely clueless on what the rich actually pay?
Well, we should start out with a new poll, quite possibly of highly unqualified respondents.
Well, this thing where you still have 43%. Why do this, and this is a part of, this is, let's talk, Dad's 98th birthday this past weekend, and it's my father who told me. You're going to find out that people want to be BS'd. Corporate taxes is one of those areas where people want to be BS'd.
Oh, yeah.
They want to be BS'd.
Yeah.
They want to believe. Because logically, you know, you tax a corporation, they're going to raise their prices and pass it on to you. We know that.
Right.
Yet they still want the corporations taxed, which is a stealth tax on you, and you're okay with it.
Right.
Unless they broke it down. Unless they broke it down on each bill that you got. If they broke it down on each bill and said, this is the taxes, this is our cost, this is the cost of government, that's you are paying for this cost of government, people would throw a fit.
Right.
But they know it's happening anyway, but they don't seem to care because everyone knows, even the Democrats gave up on saying that, well, if you increase taxes on corporations, these corporations are greedy, and so you need to tax them. Yeah, but if they're greedy, then they're going to pass it on to you. No, they won't. Well, they stopped arguing that a long time ago.
Well, remember, we have a recent, not too long ago example of that, and that's the soda tax, the sugar soda tax in Philadelphia. And the store owners came in and said, okay, this is why the six-pack is now $12. And then those local leaders said, no, how dare you tell them why they're paying more? If you were to break it down as to what corporate taxes are, and why am I paying corporate taxes? How many people even know that? You pay the taxes. Corporations don't. Think about it. If they didn't get enough money to pay their taxes and all of their costs, how would they be viable at all? They wouldn't be. It's part of doing business, and that requires you to pay them for their goods or services in a profitable way. They pass it on to you. Corporations don't pay taxes. The consumer does. But yet, we built it into our mind. Big bad corporations. Big bad evil rich people. Jealousy and envy. I should be getting... Remember the whole thing with Rex Tillerson when he was CEO of ExxonMobil?
Mm-hmm.
And it came out that he was making, I forget what it was, $20 million or whatever a year. Well, if they gave that back to all the people who bought gas from them, and we were like, everybody'd get a fraction of a penny, and he'd get zero. That was the argument for a few minutes. They shouldn't pay these CEOs so much. These corporations, blah, 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 blah. If they're breaking the law, then they should pay the price. If anyone in the corporation is breaking the law, then great, throw the book at them. But corporations are in business to stay in business, make a profit. And yes, Mr. Obama, we did build that, and we built the roads and bridges too, because the government can do nothing without profits from companies. Otherwise, there's no revenue.
The only thing I can think of is, and we've talked about this. I remember saying this, and I believe this is has to be going back to 93. So I was only a talk show host for 4 years. Mm-hmm. I was working in Rockford, Illinois, and the mayor came out and said racism is our biggest problem.
Yeah.
I said hogwash, jealousy and envy are.
Mm-hmm.
And I still believe that's why you have that right there. People want corporations to pay more taxes because their jealousy and envy is so great that they feel that somebody has something that they don't have that they don't even realize or take that. They're so emotionally invested in their jealousy and their envy that they don't even know that that they advocate a plan that would be a stealth tax on them.
Right.
That's how far jealousy and envy has gone. Because who in the hell would ever say, okay, I want to set up a thing where government can put a stealth tax on. They won't itemize it. I don't know what I'm paying in taxes for everything that I'm paying because the government does. You notice the government doesn't state we need all corporate taxes itemized so the public knows, because we're all for transparency as a government. So we want the people of the United States to know what they're actually, that they're footing the bill for corporate taxes because we believe in transparency. You really don't see that one, do you?
No. Well, remember the credit card holder Bill of Rights. Well, what about the taxpayer Bill of Rights on corporate taxes? Itemize it. Require that for a few minutes, and it would only take a few minutes. Why does it say corporate tax? Why am I paying corporate taxes?
Well, we talked about how people are going crazy over tips.
Yep.
And people are going crazy over, what was it?
Yeah.
Was it the cook or chef appreciation fee?
Right.
What are you talking about? And
right.
The woman said they should just pay. They need to. This restaurant needs to pay those chefs more and not pass the cost on to the customer.
Right.
It's like, do you know how this works? I mean, it's like they don't even know how. It's almost as if businesses are charities. Oh no. The customer and the owner should split the cost.
Yeah.
Of labor.
Right.
It's like, if you live in that delusional world, you said it one time. If the premise is wrong, everything afterwards might seem right, but the premise is wrong, so everything that follows it is wrong.
The left always starts on that false premise.
866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. And more polling on what people think about taxes and who should pay taxes and everything else. And it's fascinating because people are demanding one thing, yet what they actually think is completely opposite of what is forming their opinion.
Right.
What the reality is different. So ignorance is bliss. I have no idea, but here's what I think should happen, and I think there should happen now, and I'm absolutely certain of it. Yeah, but you're wrong on your premise. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Once you're married to the argument, you're done. You can't give it up. You're going to latch onto it. This is going to be your argument. And you say, okay, but they pay this much. Now it's what? 46% of the taxes as of 21?
Yeah.
And so now, but still they should pay more.
Even though the majority of Americans don't believe anyone should pay over 30%.
Right, exactly.
It's like, it's so funny.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.